What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be looking at how you can manage your Sorare club like a Premier League team. We are going to go over 5 ways that you can manage your Sorare gallery to replicate what Premier League teams do on a day-to-day basis. As always, guys, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you've got any questions, please let me know down in the comments. Let's get into the video. Okay, guys, so the first thing which Premier League clubs do very, very well, especially when they're well managed, is to buy and sell players at the right time. And this is something that you can implement into your Sorare gallery in a few different ways. So a really good example of this is what I've done recently in purchasing Lucas Zelarayan. He obviously was very, very good in the MLS. His price, peaked here at £944 in rare. I purchased him on the 2nd of April for £7.68. And this links into the point of buying and selling at the right times. For this sort of price, the risk to me is very, very minimal. If he goes down even further, I haven't really lost a lot. However, up here, that was his peak price. And obviously, due to the transfer news, his price plummeted all the way down. Now, obviously, it's difficult to actually know when that's going to happen. However, making purchases like this when the price is very, very low gives you a lot of upside and not much downside. Obviously, if the Saudi League then gets covered this year or next year and he stays there, he's going to be one of the premium players in that league. And also, if he leaves the Saudi League and gets a transfer maybe back to the MLS, he can then get back to the sort of scores that made him a player that was worth this sort of money. So definitely buying players that don't have as much focus on them, or perhaps are in a uncovered league currently, is a really good way of buying and selling at the right time. A second way of doing this is having a look at the market in terms of what competitions are going on currently and where is the sort of focus and interest. And I'll use an example from my gallery once again. This Zach Steffen, I won back here on March the 20th for finishing 3rd in Champ America. During this time, the MLS Special Weekly was on, and all of the prices of the in-season cards, there we go, were naturally higher. And yeah, I chose to actually sell here in the hype, and then you can see since then his price then crashed all the way down a lot further to basically half what I sold him for, and has then slightly gone up since the Rapids have been in a little bit of better form, and as the European seasons end, naturally people move into the MLS as well. So this is another good tactic that you can employ to actually buy and sell based on what's going on Sorare in terms of the competition, where people are actually playing and where their focus is. And the final way you can do this, similar to what Premier League teams do, is to buy players that have had performances previously that were very, very good. They then got injured. Naturally, their price decreases, and then you then purchase that player, hoping they can then get back to their previous best, and in terms of Sorare, their previous good scores. I've done this recently with Cheikh Doucouré, who plays for Crystal Palace in the Premier League. You can see from his scores when he was playing for Crystal Palace. We'll get rid of his recent injury DMPs, and we'll whack on Crystal Palace there. He was a very, very consistent midfielder in the Premier League. Obviously, the new manager has come in, transformed Palace. They've got some really nice players in Eze and Elise. Maybe if one of those go in the summer, perhaps his scores suffer a little bit, but he's someone that has scored well previously, got injured, his price naturally came down. I saw that and then purchased him at a very, very low price, £7.35. Once again, very, very little risk to me, but has some nice upside and could be a really nice champion or Premier League midfielder for me next season. So the next thing which Premier League clubs do very, very well is they recycle players and manage the overall age of their team, therefore bringing through youth and getting rid of those older players. It's important to always have that crop of new talent coming through, having those older players, but then also realizing when their time's up and actually moving them on. And this is something that I've tried to do recently with my gallery. It's only been very, very recent, and I need to be much better at it. Naturally, players on Sorare have their sort of shelf life, and there are those older players that do score well. mainly goalkeepers. However, there's always that risk that that player drops off, they get injured, they hang up their boots, a younger player takes their spot. So it's always key to have those younger players coming through into the gallery to actually sort of have that new generation of player for your gallery to actually use on Sorare. You can see here from my players. This guy I picked up plays in the French second league, same as Abdelli. This guy I won recently. He's only 19 and has been starting for Bordeaux. Decore we just spoke about. Corridor is a U23 forward that I purchased. Valdez is a backup to Steve Clark at Houston. Gert Baller I bought and was a backup to Bondman at Wolfsberger. He is now the number one. And Manuel is someone that hasn't actually worked out for me. I purchased him thinking he'd be quite good at Red Bulls. Hasn't actually turned out that way. But once again, is only 21, so is someone that could hopefully transform into a good forward for my gallery. I then do have some U23 options from my Saints collection. But yeah, overall, I do this okay. It's something that I definitely need to get a lot better on. If we have a look at my gallery here, I do have some of those older players that are going to need to actually be fixed fairly soon, especially in the goalkeeper range. If we have a little scroll through here, RB is obviously old. Let me scroll down a little bit further. We'll get to a few of the older boys. Gonzalez is a little bit old. Apaya, Bergstaller, Bombens, obviously now the number 2. Holtby, David Marshall, Steve Clark. There are some of those older players that obviously they're very, very cheap because of their age. However, it's key to have those players coming through to actually replace them moving forwards. Especially for me, I can see that my goalkeeper group is a little bit older overall. If you have a look at that now quickly, you can see that, for instance, Steve Clark, Stuver, Sean Johnson are all, getting into their like early to mid 30s. Steve Clark is a little bit older. However, that'll be an area which I will obviously need to actually focus on and bring through some younger goalkeepers and actually purchase those to have in place when I either sell these keepers or just leave them in the gallery to actually grind and try and yield back what I pay for them. The third way which you can manage your Sorare club like Premier League clubs do is to find value where other clubs and other players don't actually see it. And you often see this in the Premier League with those rogue transfers that come out of nowhere. You see they sign them for, £1 million, for instance, and then a season later, someone purchases them for 50 million quid and they've made a huge amount of money. And you always sort of try and wonder, well, how did they sign him for, £1 million? And yet one season later, this big club's come in and then purchase them for 50 million. So they've obviously seen something which no one else has and seen value where other clubs haven't. I think you can do this a few different ways on Sorare. First of all, linking to that first example is obviously scouting players very well on Sorare data. You can do this a few different ways. My favorite way is playing with the filters on the player finder. You can also look at pick scores. You can also look at galleries that are doing very, very well and see who they've actually been purchasing. There are lots of different ways to actually scout players on Sorare, but obviously that's one of the main things you can do is find players which no one else has, purchase them, and then hopefully they then play well and you can then sell them on or carry on using them. And a second point on seeing value where others don't, this can also be down to the sort of overall tactics in terms of where you actually enter cards and which competitions you play. Obviously, you don't really see that in real life in the Premier League as much, but it does link into that point well of finding value. And that could be, for instance, playing competitions where people aren't really focused on it too much. You often see that in midweeks or a lot actually in the J League and K League. And yeah, focusing on those leagues when everyone isn't. Could also be that you see that there's certain divisions that have less entrants but still a high number of prizes in there, which means that obviously the chance to actually win is a lot higher. So you can definitely find value in different areas, both in scouting players and also where you then play those cards as well. The fourth thing you can do is quite a simple change. It's setting goals and objectives, which a lot of Premier League clubs have at the start of the season. Some of them will obviously say, we're aiming for a top 4 finish. Some keep it a little bit more behind closed doors, but all of those clubs will 100% have goals and objectives for the manager, for the team in terms of that full season. And it's something that I never do on Sorare, but it's something that I need to do moving forwards. And you can do this in a few different ways, I think. And I think it's very much down to your gallery and why you're actually playing Sorare. But for instance, if you're someone that plays a lot of Cap 240 whilst we still got it, those goals could be based on, I want to win the threshold 75% of the time that I enter that competition. It could be a monetary value. For instance, I want to earn, $100 this month from Cap 240. If you've got a larger gallery, it can be obviously focused on podiums, focused on the amount of first places. You could also do it on the amount of cards that you win in a certain period as well. For instance, I want to win 10 rare cards over the next 2 months. But it's something that I don't really do. I sort of just enter each game week, see what I win, and go from there. And I don't really have any goals and objectives sort of lined out. And I think it's definitely a really good way which you can narrow your focus and really work on aiming for something rather than just going from game week to game week with no real structure and no real plan. That's something which I'm definitely going to do with my gallery moving forward, is set some really clear goals and objectives, and then hopefully work towards achieving them. And the last thing which Premier League clubs do very, very well normally is knowing when things need to change. And we see that quite often when they get rid of managers. Managers go through a very, very bad run of form. The club will act, bring in someone new, and then hopefully their fortunes change. Now, obviously, you can't really sack yourself from your own Sorare gallery. However, you can use a similar line of thinking in terms of strategy. If you've been doing a certain strategy and it isn't working, it really is a skill knowing when it's time to actually change, when it's time to actually stay the course. And I think that's a really, really good skill that you can try and learn and use for your Sorare gallery. For instance, let's say you are moving into the MLS and you've played a couple of months with some cards which you purchased. It gets to that point and you look back over those 2 months and you haven't won anything. I think that gets to the point where it's time to actually see, have you got enough of the quality cards? Are you doing something wrong with your captain pick? Are you, for instance, playing 2 forwards and perhaps playing 2 midfielders might be more beneficial for your scores? Are you entering those cards into the wrong competitions? Like, I think after a couple of months of trying things, if you aren't really getting success, that's when it's time to actually change things. And obviously, success can be a lot of different things. It can be winning ETH, it can be winning cards, it can be going up through the divs, it can be winning boxes now. But yeah, this obviously links into point 4, is that if you've got those clear goals and after a couple of months you're miles off actually achieving them, then knowing when to actually change is a really good skill to have. And if you can get very good at it, that's something which you can obviously then implement into your Sorare gallery, and it gives you that advantage over other managers as well. Okay guys, that is going to be all for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please make sure to let me know if you have any questions down in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.